Hello, friends. Videos of the June 18th attack on the Moscow oil refinery keep appearing. From some remarkable angles, like this Muscovite who recorded it from his apartment, the calm flight of one of the AN-196 Lyuty drones flying at low altitude between the buildings toward its target. Obviously, this strategy makes the job of the Horde's anti-aircraft batteries even more difficult. Even so, the old man, who lives in the basement of the Kremlin, praised the work of the city's defenses during the attack. Well, if that was their best performance, interesting things are coming for the capital of Mordor. And speaking of interesting things coming for the Horde, in this footage we see how the defenders have dropped a present in the stronghold where several invaders are taking shelter. The present is a thermite grenade, surely sent so they don't get cold while waiting for their assigned mosquito to visit. This is a clear signal, as it shows that the Ukrainians know exactly where this position is, so it would be wise for Ivan, for the sake of his health, to pack his things and find another place to take shelter. On the southern front, a Ukrainian crew operating an SPG-9 recoilless gun accidentally hit a power line during fighting in the Kherson Oblast, creating a huge electric arc and a rather impressive display of plasma and smoke. The SPG-9 projectile was probably traveling at high speed when it physically struck one of the power lines. By creating a bridge between the energized conductor and the ground, or between the two phases if it was a three-phase line. It's surprising that the lines were still energized. That was quite unexpected. In this footage, we see a Ram-2X loitering munition from the main intelligence directorate of Ukraine hitting a BTR-82 troop carrier of the Horde, whose driver is walking just ahead. I must say that the image quality is outstanding, as has become the norm lately. The Ram-2X is a Ukrainian-designed loitering munition with an NX wing configuration, optimized for long-range operations and highly resistant to the invaders' electronic warfare. It has been deployed in several regions, mainly to target high-value assets, such as Russian air defense systems or artillery systems. However, with fewer targets now, they're focusing on the few Z-armored vehicles that still come out into the open.
Aire libre.
Meanwhile, an assault orc carries out a vertical offensive to conquer a rebellious Ukrainian pine tree, installing a Soviet flag at the top. However, a treacherous branch collapses, sending the rag and its bearer back to the ground. In this case, we could say the offensive was halted solely by gravity, without involving the mutant mosquitoes. So we missed out on a colorful ornamental leap into the void. It'll have to be for next time. On the southern front, the campaign of mid-range attacks is producing new results, as can be seen in satellite photographs published on June 25, which reveal a massive traffic jam stretching for more than 10 kilometers on the Crimean side of the Kerch Bridge, with approximately 1,500 vehicles lined up to leave the peninsula. The images from Planet Labs on June 24 reveal a long line of cars starting at the bridge checkpoint and stretching into the Kerch district, reaching the village of Ivanivka, Kerch district extending to the village of Ivanivka. This confirms that there is a massive migration of invaders from Crimea to the mainland caused by the growing logistical difficulties that are affecting the civilian population, those who could end up stranded permanently on the peninsula, since the authorities have decreed that fuel will no longer be sold to civilians, as everything is reserved for military and government units. Added to this are the constant power outages and the ongoing danger of mosquitoes and cruise missile raids by the defenders. The Kerch Bridge is the only route through which civilians can still leave the peninsula with relative freedom, but if it is destroyed by an attack, it would mean that they would be trapped and could only be evacuated by air. The fuel situation is so severe that the roads in the Alushta region look like this, completely empty, because people prefer to use their vehicles as little as possible. On the sanctions front, last Tuesday, a French Navy boarding team intercepted the tanker Deliver in the Mediterranean Sea while it was passing off the coast of Sicily. The vessel, coming from the Russian port of Primorsk, was sailing under the Cameroonian flag, a registration that the French authorities suspected was fraudulent. Following the procedures established by Article 110 of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, which authorizes boarding on the high seas, when there is suspicion that a vessel is using a false flag, a Navy helicopter positioned itself over the deck of the oil tanker to allow a tactical team to descend. Once on board, the inspectors examined the vessel's documentation, communication equipment, and navigation records, verifying the flag irregularities, which allowed the vessel to be redirected to a port under French judicial control. The operation was carried out in coordination with the Royal Navy, which provided critical intelligence. This is the fifth intervention of this kind carried out by France since September 2025 against vessels suspected of being part of Putler's Ghost Fleet. Every day, more of these vessels are seized on the high seas, which reduces the Horde's options to keep making money from selling its sanctioned oil. On the logistics front, the government of the Netherlands has committed to funding the production and delivery of 700 Ruta Block II cruise missiles, manufactured by the Dutch defense company Destinus. The package, valued at approximately 250 million euros, was reported by the Dutch media outlet NRC on June 24, 2026. The Ukrainian Defense Minister, Mikhail Fedorov, toured the Destinus facilities together with the Dutch Defense Minister on June 17, where they described the Ruta system as part of Ukraine's immediate strike strategy, aimed at the logistics, supply lines, and military infrastructure of the invaders located behind the front lines. The Ruta Block II represents a significant leap in European-designed cruise missile technology, as it has a range of over 700 kilometers. This allows it to reach targets beyond Moscow with a 250-kilogram high-explosive warhead optimized to destroy high-value protected targets. The missile flies toward its target at low altitude, following the terrain to penetrate Ivan's layered air defense networks. To reach its target, it uses an electro-optical and infrared terminal seeker with artificial intelligence-assisted target recognition, capable of operating in environments without satellite positioning signals and intense electronic interference. To increase its survivability, the system's design has a reduced radar cross-section to make detection more difficult. These features position the Ruta Block II as a cost-effective and scalable complement to more expensive Western systems, such as the Franco-British Storm Shadow and Scalp missile system, or to the American ATACMS, offering Ukraine greater operational independence thanks to the fact that the system is entirely manufactured in Europe. This becomes more evident if we consider that the same company manufactures the T1 150 turbojet engine, which powers both the Ruta Block I systems, which is the shorter range variant, and the Block II. To conclude, a Ukrainian soldier shows us for whose freedom he is fighting. Every sacrifice is worth it to prevent the Ruski Mir from reaching it. Hello friends, a defender from the 25th Airborne Brigade, part of the 7th Air Assault Corps, is escorting a logistics drone carrying supplies to his position when he realizes they are being stalked by an ambush attack drone from the invaders. With incredible courage, he goes out to meet it and manages to shoot it down with an accurate shot from a short distance. Remarkable aim and courage, but it was a very risky decision. I'm glad everything turned out well. Meanwhile, on June 25th, Kiev's air defenses managed to intercept multiple Iskander-M ballistic missiles launched by the Horde against the capital. You know, those that the Russophiles used to tell us were unstoppable. This footage showing 2 Patriot PC-3 missiles from the 96th Air Defense Brigade intercepting 2 of Ivan's missiles was shared by the Central Air Defense Command of Ukraine. Since the deployment of the Patriot system, air defenses have managed to intercept more than 140 Russian ballistic missiles, demonstrating remarkable operational skill under constant pressure. A few days ago, President Zelensky once again requested a license from the United States to produce these systems locally, and Trump seemed at least receptive to it. We'll see if they reach an agreement in the next few weeks. For their part, the defenders are innovating and have developed a new class of high-speed strategic attack drones that are more difficult to intercept. Those already flying within the Federation, as this Mordorian shows. This class of drones are the MROC, which reach speeds of over 220 kilometers per hour and carry a small explosive payload of 30 kilograms. Apparently, the tactic is to launch successive waves of drones, where the MROC type go first, forcing the defenses to act and spin their missiles. In this way, they clear the way for the heavier and slower Luti-type strategic attack drones, which carry a heavier warhead. This combined attack scheme was clearly observed in the raid against the Moscow refinery, where it proved to be very effective. Thank you. This video is very moving. In it, a Ukrainian soldier tells us, if you don't know it yet, life is wonderful. Believe me, life is very beautiful. Cherish it. Don't throw it away for anything, because it can end at any moment. All while making it clear to the invaders. I hope you take the advice of this defender and enjoy and value your life, friends, because it's the only one we have. On the technology side, Protector-class heavy ground drones are already operating in large numbers on the front lines. Developed by Ukrainian armor, the Protector is used by the 429th Achilles Unmanned Systems Brigade to carry out rapid supply runs and deliver a large amount of essential supplies to troops in the most dangerous sectors of the battlefield in a single trip. According to operational reports, the system is capable of withstanding impacts from Russian attack drones and driving over mines, and, even so, continue moving to fulfill its mission, which generally consists of delivering up to a ton of supplies to the most exposed positions on the front line. The Protector is one of Ukraine's largest and most capable ground robotic platforms, reaching a maximum speed of 90 kilometers per hour, controlled by a radio system with a range of 15 kilometers, coupled with a Starlink system for longer distances if necessary. In terms of protection, it has puncture-proof tires that allow it to keep moving even after taking damage, and it also features STANAG Level 1 ballistic protection. The vehicle was publicly presented for the first time in September 2024. It was formally authorized for service by the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine in June 2025 and entered mass production and frontline use in 2026. While it was primarily designed as a heavy logistics vehicle, the Protector is rapidly evolving. And, in November 2025, Ukrainian armor successfully completed live-fire tests, integrating a remotely controlled weapon station. Type Tabria 12.7, which mounts a 12.7 Browning M2. Heavy machine gun with digital fire control. The system can engage ground targets, personnel, armored vehicles, and even aerial threats such as drones or helicopters, transforming the logistics platform into a potential frontline combat asset. This is also good news, as Ukrainian MiG-29 fighter bombers successfully attacked Russian defensive positions at the front, using the domestically produced Equalizer precision glide bomb for the first time. In the footage, you can see how two of these glide bombs precisely hit a pair of protected positions held by the invaders in sequence, causing explosions that leave little doubt about the condition of the occupants. Developed from scratch in about 17 months by DG Industry, with the support of the Break Brave 1 Defense Technology Cluster, the Equalizer transforms standard 250 kilo unguided aerial bombs into precision glide munitions. According to the information presented by the manufacturer at the Eurosatory Defense Fair, these have a range of up to 140 kilometers if launched from 10,000 meters. Within their guidance system, they use artificial intelligence algorithms that make them immune to the electronic interference of the invaders and can operate day or night in any weather conditions. If at least part of these specifications are effective and these bombs begin to be produced in series, the Ukrainians will be able to start massive bombing very soon. The Horde's frontline positions, while also being able to reach its logistics and command and control centers at more than 100 kilometers from the launch point, which will allow Ukrainian aircraft to avoid the action of the most advanced Russian fighter jets. In the air war, and probably related to the previous news, the Ukrainian Defense Minister, Mikhail Fomenko, announced today the signing of the contract with Sweden for the acquisition of 16 state-of-the-art Gripen Echo fighter jets. It also includes the transfer of 16 Gripen Charlie and Delta aircraft at no cost as military aid, which will be delivered at the beginning of 2027. Ukraine has allocated approximately 2.5 billion euros from funds provided by the European Union to finance the purchase, with the aircraft to be delivered in the first half of 2029. To speed up the arrival of the donated Gripens, Ukrainian pilots and technical staff are already receiving training in Sweden and the United Kingdom, in coordination with the company Saab. This phased approach provides Ukraine with short-term operational capability with a modern fleet that for the first time will feature the long-range MBDA Meteor air-to-air missile, which has an effective range of 100 kilometers. This will allow the Gripen to push Russian fighter bombers, their Su-34s, away from the front, interfering with the launch of their ASCAB glide bombs. These capabilities directly address Ukraine's urgent needs, which include protecting its cities and critical infrastructure from aerial bombardment, countering massive drone and cruise missile attacks, and supporting ground forces with precision strikes. Also, it's great that Ukraine will finally have an aircraft specifically designed to fight against the Mordorites. In the next video, I promise you that we will have an update on the campaign on strategic sanctions against the invaders' oil industry, where very interesting things are happening. To finish, a video from the 1st Independent Medical Battalion showing us one of their protected MOL medical evacuation vehicles, the one that is equipped with an armored capsule to transport wounded defenders as quickly as possible from the frontline positions to the emergency care stations in the rear. Hello friends, this is interesting. The defenders have begun to install special containers with weapon stations equipped with heavy machine guns along the Horde's Shahed drone transit corridors. These turrets belong to the Sky Sentinel family, which were developed in Ukraine and are usually equipped with an M2 Browning .50 caliber machine gun or its equivalent, which are capable of intercepting Shahed loitering munitions, reconnaissance drones, and even cruise missiles flying at low altitude. These systems can be remotely controlled via real-time video signal and video game-style controllers. At each station, an artificial intelligence agent operates, handling detection, tracking, and fire control calculations based on local conditions, such as wind or temperature, which are measured by sensors mounted on the turret. The most advanced versions of this system can operate fully autonomously and only require human confirmation to fire. The entire unit can be mounted on a trailer to change position, or it can also be installed on elevated towers, providing 360-degree protection. The cost per unit is $150,000, meaning they are much more affordable than a regular anti-aircraft missile. According to the manufacturers, a city or key area can be protected with between 10 and 30 of these systems. The manufacturing company's engineers assured that the autonomous control system can distinguish threats from birds, even under intense combat conditions. Meanwhile, the Defender's Hornet drones continue targeting the invaders' logistics trucks on the southern front, whose driver, without a doubt, would have wished to have a Z turret to protect him. On June 30th, operators from the 81st Airmobile Brigade of the 7th Air Assault Corps destroyed 2 invading tanks and an enemy ammunition depot in the Sloviansk or Vlastedonesk sector. The attacks targeted the Mortarite forces, who were trying to recover abandoned equipment after a series of failed mechanized assaults in the area. In early June 2026, units of the 81st Brigade, part of the 7th Corps, repelled a 2-day Russian mechanized assault involving tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, motorcycles, and dozens of assault troops. Russian forces have repeatedly tried to regain ground towards Sloviansk through combined offensives using motorcycles and armored vehicles. When these assaults stall or fail, the surviving units usually try to consolidate their positions, evacuate damaged equipment, or resupply the most advanced positions. The fighting on June 30th was a counteroffensive, exploiting Ivan having a large number of personnel recovering equipment, which created confusion in their lines during the attack. This strategy turned a local defensive success into a chance to eliminate several Russian combat engineer teams and finish destroying the tanks they tried to recover. July 1st is likely observed as the Day of the Special Units of the Defense Intelligence Directorate of Ukraine, to pay tribute to its elite operators who have been working on the front lines of the conflict since the first day of the Zed invasion in 2022. From the desperate defense of Kiev and the heroic resistance in Mariupol to carrying out high-impact missions in the regions of the Black Sea, Zaporizhia, and Sumy. These warriors carry out precision strikes, gather vital intelligence, and decisively disrupt enemy operations. These special units have become one of Ukraine's most effective asymmetric advantages. Their teams are made up of highly trained operators who specialize in reconnaissance, sabotage, direct action raids, hostage rescue, and the innovative use of advanced unmanned systems. Their work combines traditional special operations techniques with cutting-edge technology, allowing them to carry out attacks in enemy territory and neutralize high-value Russian targets with a minimal footprint on the ground, avoiding being detected. For example, on June 29, the Special Unit Artan carried out a successful ambush in which they eliminated a Russian elite sabotage and reconnaissance group near Stepnohirsk in the Zaporizhia region. The unit anticipated the enemy's infiltration, using the weather and heavy electronic interference from the horde to keep reconnaissance drones grounded. That's why they prepared the area to lure the invaders into a kill zone where they neutralize them, with no Ukrainian casualties at all. As the war enters its 5th year, the special units of the Ukrainian Intelligence Directorate have adapted to battlefields saturated with drones and the war of attrition. Their intelligence-based approach allows Ukrainian conventional forces to operate more effectively while imposing disproportionate costs on Russian personnel, equipment, and morale. Their sacrifices and successes serve as an example of how elite teams, combined with technological innovation, can prevail against a numerically superior aggressor. According to the defenders working on the Lyman front, June was a very hot month. This is something the invaders in this video can also confirm, as they suffered a notable number of losses in what remains one of the most active and grueling sectors for infantry on the entire Russian-Ukrainian front. The invading forces continued to carry out repeated offensives and infiltration attempts toward Lyman and its surroundings, using small assault groups that moved through the wooded terrain to approach Ukrainian positions. These tactics aim to take advantage of the complex terrain to hide from the ever-watchful eyes of the defenders, while trying to find and destroy the Ukrainian defensive positions one by one. The defenders respond with constant reconnaissance and coordinated attack drones along with artillery fire. The infantry only engages in combat if all of the above has failed, which is not very common since most of the Z assault groups are neutralized long before they get close to the forward positions. The Signum Battalion, which is part of the 59th Assault Brigade, plays a central role in the defense of this area. And, according to a report from July 1st, the unmanned systems operators of Signum, they killed 137 invaders, with another 70 wounded added just during the month of June. This is notable because the Lyman sector is characterized by dense mixed forests with tall trees and thick underbrush, mixed with open areas which create one of the most demanding environments for drone warfare. The thick tree canopies, low branches, vines, and uneven terrain severely restrict visibility. Therefore, conventional radio-controlled drones face multiple problems as their propellers are extremely vulnerable, even to minor collisions with vegetation, which can instantly destroy the blades, unbalance the motors, and cause catastrophic failures. In addition, the dense vegetation weakens radio signals, reducing control range and video quality. Ivan's intense electronic interference to protect his troops makes operations even more complicated. Signum has been the pioneer in the extensive use of fiber optic controlled mosquito drones, which provide almost zero latency, high-resolution real-time images, and total immunity to interference. Crucial advantages in contested terrain and dense vegetation, where data links would fail. The reported results and records demonstrate the exceptional skill of the unit's operators. Those who are able to fly through narrow gaps between tree trunks and branches, at different altitudes and speeds, maintaining stable flight while dodging obstacles, which requires split-second adjustments based on real-time video transmission. As always, it's remarkable how many elderly people can be seen serving in the invaders' assault forces, who, besides having mobility issues, also have to deal with the problems of advancing through uneven terrain that hinders their movement. Something else that caught my attention is that the combat load of the mosquitoes seems to have increased their explosive capacity, because in multiple impacts we see explosions that don't seem to match the weight of the warhead they were carrying. From the point of view of the mortarites, operating in the forest is also a challenge, because it's difficult to determine the position of the mosquito due to the echoes generated by the trees. That's why in several of the close encounters of the third kind, we see how the illegal visitors are either looking the other way or simply haven't realized what's coming at them. Fighting in these environments is never easy, and it gets harder every day. Well, it's all for the sake of reaching Kiev in 3 days. The engineers from the company Ukrainian Armor are joining the viral trend this Ukrainian summer and are presenting their Protector-class ground drone. Honestly, I'm not sure if she's with engineering or marketing, but I doubt there will be complaints from the Parabellum community. Hello friends, in this footage we see 2 Ukrainian FP-5 Flamingo cruise missiles flying at low altitude over Volgograd before striking the Titan Barakati defense plant on the night of June 27th. This plant specializes in the production of self-propelled launchers and transport vehicles for the Iskander-M tactical ballistic missile system, as well as launchers and ground support equipment for the Intercontinental Ballistic Missiles, ICBM, Topol-M, and YARS, and components for heavy MSTA-B and MSTA-S artillery systems. This makes it a priority target for the defenders, since disabling it will reduce Mordor's ability to carry out precision and long-range attacks. Reports indicate that Ukrainian forces launched 5 Flamingo missiles, at least 3 of which hit the plant's workshops directly. Satellite images published on July 1 reveal significant structural damage to at least 2 buildings in the plant's production area, which were severely damaged. Let us remember that the Flamingo carries a 1,000-kilogram warhead, so the damage must be extensive to the delicate precision equipment used in the manufacturing of specialized vehicles. Something interesting is that the defenders reported that the attack was largely due to a report by the Russian regional channel GTRK. Volgograd TV, which on June 21 aired a report about the work of the plant, allowed the defenders to learn many interesting details about the company's activities. It's clear that the Ukrainians enjoyed this report, since they visited the factory directly with their Flamingos. Meanwhile, the journalists from the channel have developed a sudden allergy to the windows of tall buildings. Also, on the strategic sanctions front, on June 26, Ukrainian forces carried out a long-range attack against the first communications node, Rubin, also known as the Space Communication Center, part of the 14th Main Communication Center, under the General Staff of the Armed Forces ZZ, located near the settlement of Belamut, Moscow Oblast. This facility is one of the most modern and capable satellite communications nodes in Russia, and was responsible for providing civilian and military command authorities with secure satellite communications. According to the General Staff of Ukraine, the attack damaged the main technical building, the antenna farm, and a digital communications tower. This is the 4th attack against this type of strategic Russian satellite communications infrastructure in recent months. Obviously, the defenders' goal is to degrade the command, control, and communications capability of the invaders, or in other words, Ivan is going to have his long-distance Wi-Fi service cut off very soon. In the same area, the operators of the 1st Center of the 412th Nemesis Brigade and the 412th Nemesis Brigade and the 413th Raid Brigade carried out a combined precision airstrike during the night of July 1st to 2nd against the Lukoil Nizhny Novgorod oil refinery in Stovo, Nizhny Novgorod Oblast. More than 30 drones took part in the raid, some of which were spotted by a local witness flying in formation. The attack hit the plant's AVT-6 primary crude processing unit, causing a large-scale fire, with flames and thick columns of black smoke visible from the entire surrounding area. The Stovo refinery is among the largest in Russia, with a processing capacity of approximately 17 million metric tons of crude oil per year. It's the country's 4th largest refinery by capacity and 2nd largest gasoline producer. The complex produces various petroleum products such as gasoline, diesel, and other refinery outputs. Stovo Refinery processes millions of tons. The refinery handles large processing volumes, supplying both the civilian population and the military apparatus of the horde. This refinery serves as the main fuel supplier for the Moscow region. This is the 4th Ukrainian attack on the plant since 2025. In the attack carried out on May 20 of this year, the drones managed to damage the same AVT-6 unit in addition to causing a fire at the facilities. Meanwhile, in the attack on June 24, they damaged the AVT-5 distillation unit, causing a temporary suspension of the entire plant's operations. The consequences of these offensives are evident, as seen in the footage of long lines of vehicles at a gas station in Sabaikalsky Krai, waiting to refuel. What's surprising is that this town is located 5,000 kilometers from the Ukrainian front, which suggests that the sanctions are working quite well. A short news item, because the Z-Mil bloggers Voivoda and Fighter Bomber reported the loss of an attack helicopter, Kamov K-52, alligator of the invaders, on July 2nd, in circumstances that remain officially unclear, but it was unofficially reported that one of the pilots died because the ejection system did not work. The K-52 is one of the few helicopters in the world with an ejection system, which is extremely complex, so a failure points to serious problems in the maintenance of the aircraft. Now for some bad news. since during the early hours of July 2nd, Russian forces carried out one of the largest combined drone and missile attacks against the Ukrainian capital, using practically all the weapons in their arsenal, from Shahed drones, cruise missiles, as well as Zircon and Iskander ballistic missiles, everything except their much-touted Oreshnik missile. Kyiv's air defense systems managed to intercept most of the approximately 496 long-range attack drones and 74 ballistic missiles launched against the capital and other regions. However, dozens of missiles hit residential neighborhoods, critical infrastructure, and civilian facilities in several districts, causing widespread destruction, fires, and numerous civilian casualties. The latest official figures confirm at least 22 dead and nearly 90 injured, including children and emergency personnel. A 9-story residential building in the Vernitsky district was partially destroyed, and search and rescue operations for the victims are ongoing. Damage was reported in more than 30 locations in the city, affecting apartment blocks, an ambulance station, energy infrastructure, internet services, a scientific institute, and commercial buildings. Of course, the spokesperson for the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Maria Zakharova, claimed that the buildings attacked during the night were used by the Kyiv regime to kill civilians. She justified the operation as targeting strategic military sites. Among the facilities which, according to the invaders, were used by the Ukrainian government to oppress its population, there was the central warehouse of the Ukrainian publishing house Bukchov, which was completely destroyed, losing approximately 800,000 books, the result of years of work by authors, translators, editors, illustrators, and printers. Another dangerous building neutralized by the Z invaders during the night was a logistics center operated by the Ukrainian Red Cross, which was also completely destroyed, losing more than 320,000 humanitarian aid items valued at $2 million, which included generators, medical supplies, and strategic emergency reserves intended for rapid response to bombings, fires, evacuations, and support for vulnerable populations and medical facilities. The invaders called it all very dangerous. Another building used by the Ukrainian government to harm its people was also destroyed by the invaders. It was a sports center in the city of Saparilla, where a group of swimmers were training when the building was hit by a drone, which caused the roof to collapse on the unsuspecting athletes. 4 athletes were injured, and at least one is reportedly in serious condition. The Russians will likely claim their attack targeted defenders being trained for an amphibious assault on Crimea. Another warehouse affected by the attack was the company OK Wine, which, as its name suggests, distributes wine to retail stores throughout Ukraine. One truck driver tried moving the vehicle, hoping the burning products would fall off and save the truck. However, it reached a point where the flames were out of control, so he had to give up and abandon the vehicle to save himself. At least there are still nations that know how to show respect for culture, as demonstrated by the officials of the Japan International Cooperation Agency, who welcomed a Ukrainian delegation by wearing traditional Ukrainian vyshyvankas, so their honored guests would feel at home. Thanks to the Japanese for their lesson in courtesy and empathy. Hello, friends. Accidents can happen even to the most advanced robotic systems, as this Ukrainian ground drone that got stuck in a rather exposed position can attest. Fortunately, one of its cybernetic colleagues was traveling along the same path and proceeded to give it the assistance it needed to get back to work and deliver the supplies that its human comrades need at the forward positions. Speaking of urgent deliveries, a Ukrainian fighter bomber sent a precision glide bomb against a command and control center that the invaders had carefully set up in an underground bunker. The munition managed to penetrate the cover to carry out a quick remodeling to improve the ventilation of the facility. If you ask me, a second munition was needed for the other end of the command center, but at least we had plenty of laughs. The soldiers of the 128th Mountain Assault Brigade don't need anything too advanced to have a good day. They attach their fishing rod to a drone and go out to catch no fewer than 10 Mavic Z reconnaissance drones, tangling their propellers with their line, to which they've tied a weight to increase its effectiveness. With this miraculous haul, the mountaineers of the 128th Brigade prevent the horde from freely conducting reconnaissance over the battlefield. Each downed Russian vulture means fewer eyes in the sky and more freedom of movement for the defenders, all using just a simple stick with a string. This is surprising, but not for the reason you think. The Mosquitoes of the 414th Brigade are depotenizing a Torim-2 anti-aircraft system belonging to the invaders on the Saparilla front, which was moving very recklessly in broad daylight. So far, it's just another normal workday. What surprises me is that Ivan still has operational anti-aircraft batteries on this front. These systems are like magnets for mosquitoes, and by now I expected to see them only inside Mordor, not in the most exposed parts of the front. Anyway, another one bites the dust. Ivan is getting more and more nervous, and one sign of that is the military simulation exercise that Russian general staff officers developed to explicitly recreate possible Ukrainian ground operations on the Crimean Peninsula. The exercise, called Crimea Awakening, brought together reserve officers and retired members of the Z Armed Forces to rehearse defensive responses against a blue force operating from the Odessa sector and the northwestern approaches of the Black Sea. According to information published by the Z Insider Mill blogger, the officers acting as the blue team focused on the use of hybrid warfare tactics, including extensive use of drones for reconnaissance and attacks, use of long-range precision weapons, advanced reconnaissance systems, and swarms of fast assault boats operating at high speed. Meanwhile, the officers of the Red Team took a reactive and defensive stance, as their mission was to protect key areas of the peninsula, such as Sevastopol, the north and east of Crimea, and the Kerch Strait. Military analysts interpret the exercise as a reflection of genuine concern among the invaders regarding the Ukrainians' ability to retake the peninsula. The Crimean government, overseeing the peninsula, reported Russian units were immobile due to a fuel shortage. This does not mean that these incursions could still capture parts of the peninsula, but they could destroy or attack strategic targets of interest, such as bridges, airfields, or logistical depots. The Azov Army Corps is preparing something, and they themselves warned us to prepare for Operation Hell. And to accompany their warning, they released a video in which a medium-range Hornet attack drone comes to greet the engineer of an invader's locomotive, which is painted with the classic light blue color of Soviet trains. This could indicate that this new campaign of attacks will focus on Ivan's railway transport networks. At the end of the video, the word "soon" appears, so the message is clear to me. The demilitarization of the Horde's trains is already underway. The operation focuses on a strategic weakness of the Horde, since its railway network, which still relies heavily on obsolete Soviet rolling stock, is very vulnerable and extremely difficult to replace. Surely soon, we'll start seeing steam locomotives on the tracks of Mordor. Wait, they're already using them. This was undoubtedly fully anticipated in the plan of the old man in the bunker. An African tourist on the payroll of the invading Horde has his first and probably last encounter with the loving local mosquito fauna, warriors of the Ukrainian steppes, which he tries to fool by showing some of his traditional dances. But the truth is that the mosquito doesn't seem very interested in the cultural exchange offered by the traveler from the distant African lands. That's why he ends up giving him the Putin kiss, which the defenders have promised to give to all illegal visitors. Wait, hold on. The invader wasn't wearing pants. Well, the legal ones. Wait, hold on. The invader wasn't wearing pants. Wow. The Russians don't care about their foreign volunteers and won't even give them pants. It's just too much. A few days ago, two very interesting things happened with respect to Belarus. The first happened on June 19th when, through an ultimatum, President Zelensky read the letter from the Horde The railway, which extremely focuses on the weakness of the horde, the railway, on obsolete rolling stock, very extremely a horde, since it would deactivate the towers to a great extent. This operation extremely focuses on the strategic weakness of the horde. Since these were used by them for the railway network, obsolete rolling stock, it is very, and the horde, their railway, which to a great extent is extremely difficult to replace. Railway focuses on the horde because outdated equipment is hard to replace. It was not necessary to wait that long, since in just 3 days all the towers had been dismantled by the Belarusians, which was confirmed by the electronic warfare units of the National Guard of Ukraine, and the effect was immediate, with a marked decrease in the activity of horde drones along the Belarusian border. Lukashenko may be a dictator, but he's not a complete fool, as he has skillfully avoided having Belarus become directly involved in the war, despite Russia's continuous pressure over these 4 years. He doesn't do this just out of a pacifist spirit, but because he knows that if Belarus gets involved, it would mean the end of both Belarus and himself, since he would either be absorbed by Russia or share its fate when Mordor is defeated. Obviously, this decision didn't sit well with his boss in the Kremlin, who summoned him to a meeting that lasted 3 days of closed-door negotiations, after which Lukashenko didn't return to Minsk, but went directly to China to seek support, since it's the only country that can act as a political counterweight to Moscow and prevent Putin from continuing to try to force Belarus's participation in the war. Lukashenko seems to have realized that in a direct war against Ukraine, Belarus would be extremely vulnerable, since it doesn't have even a fraction of the defenders' capabilities, who could easily take out its oil refineries and other vital facilities in just a few days. Changing the subject, on the logistics front, the armed forces of Ukraine received 10 Alto NG light training aircraft. This was announced on June 25th by Defense Minister Mikhail Fedorov. 5 aircraft were provided directly by the Czech government through the European coalition to support Ukraine, and another 5 units were funded by fantastic Czech donors through the Derek Pro-Putina Foundation, which literally means a gift for Putin. These modern 2-seat training aircraft are manufactured by the Czech company Direct Fly, and their design prioritizes great maneuverability, low maintenance costs, and excellent performance on short runways, which makes it ideal for initial and intermediate flight training for cadets who need to develop their basic and advanced piloting skills, navigation, takeoff, and landing procedures, and instrument approach. This ability to train its new pilots within the country drastically reduces the cost of initial flight hours, optimizes the scarce resources of the Air Force, and reduces dependence on foreign training programs, which sometimes simply do not have enough slots for Ukrainian cadets. The Czechs once again score another point with a great contribution to the cause. If you want to see additional content, I invite you to visit our 2 new channels where we present information about the war in a different format. Don't forget to check them out. Check out our Patreon. Just $1 gets you access to many uncensored videos and documentaries. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel.